Weeks after Phil Mickelson and his caddy of 25 years announced a mutual, amicable split, a package arrived at Jim Mackay's home in Scottsdale, Arizona. Inside were 4 championship flags, each one covered in an oversized signature. What should have been treasured keepsakes reportedly felt like something else entirely. Golf's most decorated caddy partnership produced 41 of Phil Mickelson's 42 PGA Tour victories and all 5 of his major championships. The official story called the ending mutual. According to biographer Alan Shipnuck, that was not true. Jim Mackay reportedly fired Phil Mickelson, not the other way around, over a debt that had grown to $900,000. If stories like this interest you, leave your first reaction in the comments below, and subscribe for more golf coverage built on documented reporting. The partnership began at the 1992 United States Open. Jim Mackay, then a young caddy from Florida, took the bag of Phil Mickelson, a standout from Arizona State University who had already won on the PGA Tour as an amateur. 2 years earlier, fellow golfer Fred Couples had given Mackay the nickname Bones, reportedly because he could not remember his actual name. Before working with Phil Mickelson, Jim Mackay had caddied for former Masters champion Larry Mize starting in 1990, and later for former United States Open champion Scott Simpson, who reportedly encouraged him to move on if a stronger opportunity appeared. That opportunity arrived with Phil Mickelson, then a 3-time NSA champion and United States amateur champion. Their first tournament together was United States Open qualifying in Memphis, where Phil Mickelson, playing as an amateur, shot 69 in the first round and broke the course record in the second. Out of a field of roughly 80 golfers competing for 16 qualifying spots, Mackay expected the job to last a season or two. Instead, it lasted 25 years and became one of the most successful runs in professional golf history. By the time it ended, 41 of Phil Mickelson's 42 PGA Tour wins had come with Jim Mackay on the bag, along with every major championship victory: the 2004 Masters, the 2005 PGA Championship, the 2006 and 2010 Masters, and the 2013 Open Championship at Muirfield. The pairing also represented the United States in 11 Ryder Cups and 11 President's Cups together. Phil Mickelson often described the relationship by saying Bones was the only person on the golf course who genuinely wanted him to play well, a comment widely quoted by fans and reporters as evidence of the loyalty between the two men. According to a 2010 interview, Mackay even held a standing agreement with Mickelson allowing him 1 veto over a club selection or decision per year, an arrangement Mickelson later confirmed publicly, joking that the veto privilege was non-transferable when it came time to hand the job to someone else. That loyalty appeared to run in both directions. In 2009, Amy Mickelson was diagnosed with breast cancer. According to accounts from that period, Jim Mackay and his wife were among the first people to arrive at the Mickelson household. The two families had grown close over the years. Mackay's wife had reportedly been introduced to him through Amy Mickelson herself. For a long stretch of their partnership, the relationship looked less like an employer and employee and more like family, with both households reportedly maintaining close personal ties well beyond tournament weeks. Underneath that public image, a financial dispute was building. The PGA Tour launched the FedEx Cup in 2007, introducing a season-long points race with large bonus pools attached. According to Alan Shipnuck's reporting in his biography of Phil Mickelson, the golfer promised his caddy a percentage of whatever bonus money he earned, consistent with how tournament winnings were typically shared between players and caddies across the sport. Per Shipnuck's account, that payment did not arrive. Year after year, the debt reportedly grew, eventually reaching close to $900,000 by Mackay's own calculations. The scale of that unpaid amount became more difficult to explain once separate financial details surfaced years later. In 2022, during federal investigations connected to the Billy Walters insider trading case, government auditors reviewed Phil Mickelson's finances. Shipnuck's book, citing a source with direct access to those documents, reported that Phil Mickelson had gambling losses exceeding $40 million between 2010 and 2014, a period during which his annual income was estimated at just over $40 million as well. Business Insider, reporting on the same material, quoted Shipnuck's summary directly, per the government audit. That's roughly how much Mickelson averaged in annual gambling losses. The same excerpt noted that after taxes, travel costs, and a staff that included an agent, caddy, pilots, chef, and personal trainer, along with unusual personal expenses such as a purchased Tyrannosaurus Rex skull, Phil Mickelson's disposable income during those years was estimated at closer to $10 million annually, matching almost exactly what he was reportedly losing to gambling each year. Phil Mickelson was never charged with wrongdoing in the Walters case, though he was ordered to return trading profits connected to it, while Walters himself was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Beyond the unpaid FedEx Cup money, smaller frictions reportedly accumulated between the two men. Jim Mackay's yardage calculations and course reads were said to be overruled at times. Phil Mickelson would reportedly arrive later than agreed upon times, leaving his caddy waiting at the course. One recurring issue involved tradition rather than money. In professional golf, the winning caddy typically keeps the flag from the 18th hole as a personal memento. According to Shipnuck's reporting, Phil Mickelson claimed every flag for himself instead, originally intending them for his grandfather's kitchen wall, a gesture that included the 2004 Masters flag, presented 4 months after his grandfather's death to his grandmother. Jim Mackay reportedly understood and respected that original gesture. However, Mickelson's grandfather had already passed away, and the practice continued through 19 more tour victories, including 4 additional major championships. Jim Mackay never kept a single flag during that stretch. A source close to Mackay, quoted in Shipnuck's book, described the pattern as deeply disrespectful, noting that every other caddy who has won a Masters tournament has been allowed to keep the 18th hole flag. During Phoenix Open Week, when the Mackays reportedly hosted dinners for players and caddies at their home, guests would routinely ask where all the flags were, a question Shipnuck's reporting describes as a recurring source of frustration for Mackay. By late 2016, Jim Mackay was 51 years old and had recently undergone surgery to replace both of his knees, a physical toll connected to decades of carrying a golf bag across professional courses. Around this period, according to Shipnuck's reporting, Phil Mickelson sent $400,000 toward the FedEx Cup debt, less than half of the amount Mackay had calculated he was owed. The partnership reached its breaking point at the Memorial Tournament in Dublin, Ohio, in June 2017. According to Shipnuck's book, the split did not happen through a phone call or a public statement. It happened in person, on site, weeks before the world learned anything about it. Jim Mackay ended the working relationship, airing his accumulated grievances directly. Both men reportedly agreed to keep the details private going forward. What followed added another layer to the story. The United States Open that year was held at Erin Hills, and Phil Mickelson chose to skip the tournament, citing his daughter Amanda's high school graduation. Golf media at the time framed the decision as a family-first choice consistent with his public image. According to reporting from ESPN's Bob Herrig, Jim Mackay traveled to the venue anyway and scouted the course, in case a weather delay created a scheduling window that would allow Phil Mickelson to fly in and make his tee time. This scouting trip occurred despite Mackay already having ended the partnership weeks earlier, and no such delay ultimately materialized. On June 20, 2017, 2 separate press releases were issued simultaneously, describing the split as mutual. Phil Mickelson's statement read, "In part, our decision is not based on a single incident. We just feel it's the right time for a change." His statement also called Mackay one of the most knowledgeable and dedicated caddies in the world, and said the Mickelson family would always consider Mackay, his wife, and their children as family. Jim Mackay's statement offered similar warmth, closing with the line, "I wish Phil nothing but the best." His game is still at an elite level, and when he wins in the future, definitely the Masters. I will be among the first to congratulate him. Fellow caddy John Wood, later a broadcaster with NBC and the Golf Channel, described the reaction across the PGA Tour by telling reporters the news felt like watching your parents split up. Jordan Spieth said publicly he was shocked, while Rory McIlroy offered a milder response, suggesting player-caddy relationships naturally run their course. According to Shipnuck's reporting, the warmth in both statements masked a financial dispute that neither man discussed publicly. The arrangement reportedly benefited both men. Phil Mickelson avoided public scrutiny over being let go by his own employee, while Jim Mackay preserved future opportunities in broadcasting and caddying without being connected to a public financial dispute. Tim Mickelson, Phil Mickelson's brother and a former Arizona State golf coach, took over caddying duties immediately afterward. Shortly after the split became public, a package arrived at Jim Mackay's home in Scottsdale. According to Shipnuck's account, it contained an additional $400,000, closing out the FedEx Cup debt in full, along with 4 championship flags: the 2005 PGA Championship, the 2006 and 2010 Masters, and the 2013 Open Championship. These were the flags Mackay had waited 25 years to receive. However, each flag reportedly arrived covered in a large Phil Mickelson signature, which Mackay felt diminished their value as personal keepsakes rather than restoring them. According to the book, Jim Mackay has never displayed the flags and reportedly intends to sell them eventually and donate the proceeds to charity. Separately, Shipnuck's reporting notes that Phil Mickelson keeps dozens of signed golf balls in a safe deposit box intended for his children, suggesting the flags may eventually follow a similar path toward monetization rather than display. The two men's careers moved in different directions after 2017. Jim Mackay was inducted into the Caddie Hall of Fame that same year and joined the broadcast booth at NBC and the Golf Channel, where he worked as an on-course commentator. In September 2021, he returned to caddying, joining golfer Justin Thomas, a partnership he had reportedly sought out specifically. In 2022, ahead of the PGA Championship at Southern Hills, Mackay was credited with a range-side conversation that helped Thomas recover from a third-round 74. Thomas later told reporters, "I'm fully confident in saying that I wouldn't be standing here if he didn't give me that talk." Within 8 months of joining Thomas, the pairing won the 2022 PGA Championship, giving Mackay his 6th major championship as a caddy and reportedly the first time in his career he kept the 18th hole flag for himself. Speaking to the Associated Press afterward, Mackay said of the moment, "It's so hard to put into words." Phil Mickelson's parallel path included his own historic achievement. In 2021, at age 50, he won the PGA Championship at Kiowa Island with his brother, Tim Mickelson, caddying for him, becoming the oldest major champion in golf history. The following year, comments he made to Alan Shipnuck about the Saudi Arabian government, made during research for the biography, became public and drew significant criticism. Phil Mickelson subsequently signed with Live Golf in a deal reportedly worth approximately $200 million. Regarding his former caddy, Phil Mickelson has stated publicly that he paid Jim Mackay more than any caddy in the history of the sport has received, describing an overpayment relative to typical caddy earnings. Jim Mackay has not responded publicly to that characterization and has consistently declined to discuss the details of the partnership's ending, adhering to what several sources in Shipnuck's reporting describe as an unwritten code of silence among caddies regarding their employers. The image of 4 championship flags, sent by courier and covered in oversized signatures, remains one of the more specific documented details connected to the end of the partnership. Was Jim Mackay right to end the working relationship after 25 years? Or does Phil Mickelson's account of overpayment change how the story should be read? Share your perspective in the comments, and subscribe for more golf coverage built on documented reporting.